Hey, hello again, SEGL students. Really enjoyed my conversation with you this morning. One of the most fun parts of my week. Really enjoyed meeting you guys. And one of you wrote a question, bingo, right afterwards. You took me up on my offer, which I love, John. Thank you. John, your question is, I was wondering about democracy, the development. I like the idea of the development of democracy in Rwanda before, during, and after the genocide. Can you tell me about your experience seeing the transformation of democracy, and if you believe that Rwanda has successfully transitioned to a democratic system of governance? That transition sounds kind of like, yeah, we've arrived, and I don't know what country in the world has arrived, really. I think I want to stick with your first statement about the development, because I think it's that. It's a journey of development, ongoing journey, before, during, and after. Okay, before we moved to Rwanda 4 years before the genocide started, and 6 months after we got there, a war started. So it's a really a difficult time. And during the war, the IMF and the World Bank, as I understand it, told Rwanda, we're not going to keep funding you as a one-party state. You got to have multi-parties. And so kind of overnight, a bunch of political parties grew up in Rwanda. And honestly, I don't speak Kinyarwanda, so I'm not I can't be a very accurate or deep source in the development of those political parties. But from my perspective, what I saw was it seemed to be a lot about a region, a political party, this region, that, as opposed to ideologies. But I'm sure that's an oversimplification, because the ideologies would have been expressed more in Kinyarwanda, and I would have missed a lot of that. What I do remember noticing, though, was, and I think this was people's idea, democracy was like everybody can do whatever they want. I remember more trash appearing on the streets in Kigali during this time before the genocide. And it's hard to pin the random violence that was happening on this shift to multi-party, because I'm sure there would have been a lot of factors, not to mention the fact that we were in the middle of a war. But it just seemed that it added another level of chaos, multi-partyism. And of course, to really define democracy, I would say, I'm gonna run with the definition of that I heard that I really liked, and it stuck with me. The guy said democracy is all about our shared common good. Our shared common good. I remember he said, if you can, grab a package off the shelf and read the ingredients on it, make sure you don't have an allergic reaction. Democracy. Clean water. You get clean water out of the tap. Good democracy. Our shared common good. So I know that's probably maybe off on a tangent from the textbook definition of democracy. But during the genocide, no, it was like there wasn't law or order. And without a justice system, how can a democracy grow? It was organized chaos and killing. Organized. After the genocide, this is where it's really interesting, because again, if we're looking at our shared common good, man, Rwanda, for example, has really gone strong in the area of gender equality and women's rights, and women's taking part in the process, the democratic process in the country, the commercial process. The whole idea of women's rights is a big part, which to me is really important for our shared common good. And healthcare, one example, I think there was a period in the early 2000s that they cut the deaths from malaria by 70% because of nets and spraying where the breeding grounds are. Shared common good. Definitely. The increased number of education opportunities, security in the country, safety, one of the lowest crime rates. You can go to bed at night not worried about someone busting in and kidnapping your dad or your daughter. So security is a big part to our shared common good. Having a voice. Let me give you one more example, and then I'll have to get on to another set of questions. But I remember about 5 years ago, 6, I'm not sure, I was in Rwanda and I had the opportunity to visit with the president's chief of staff, and young lady in her early 30s then, with 2 kids, and brilliant, understandably. That's why President would pick her as his chief of staff. And I said, Ines, I've heard this story. I'd like to just confirm. I heard a story that the planners of the genocide's children, that the government went looking for them. I always like to kind of pause, government goes looking for the children of the planner. It makes a little headline there, for the children of the planners of the genocide. But not, like to put them on a watch list or arrest them or something like that, but to tell them they didn't have to be defined by their parents' actions and choices, their parents' history. And she laughs and she says, well, that's not exactly true. She says, we didn't go looking for them. They came to us. And I thought, wow, that's even better. What kind of an environment, what kind of habitat, what kind of climate would you need for the children of the planners of the genocide to come and approach the government and say, we don't want to be defined by our parents. We want to be part of this rebuilding process. So you've got a good question there about democracy. And okay, one last thing. I think that for generations in many countries, I'm not going to just pick on developing countries, many countries across the spectrum, people have not experienced good governance practices where the priorities of the people are really the number one priority, and people are selflessly serving the public, free from corruption and all of those kind of scandals. I know we're human and it's not going to be ever a perfect thing, but Rwanda, I would say, for the last 20 some years has had an incredible example of good governance, of people when, for example, somebody is not doing their job in the government, there's a process and a chain of command to follow through in terms of accountability. People who are responsible for education or health care in their district, they sign what I believe they call it, I don't know if they've changed the name, but like a performance contract with the president saying this year, this is what we're going to do. The number of classrooms we're going to add, the number of courses we want to add in our schools, how many schools will now be offering a course on entrepreneurial business, or health care, what we're going to do in terms of preventative health care measures and our programs of nutrition. And everybody has a very strategic approach to their shared common good governance. And so that annual process of a performance contract and accountability and transparency, other really good things in this journey of developing democracy. So, hey, thanks for asking about that question. Look forward to visiting with you guys again next week. Hope you have a wonderful weekend. Take care.